Everybody to episode 6 of the CTR podcast. I'm gonna have to start putting the numbers at the front of these intros because eventually I'm gonna forget where I'm up to because we're on the 6 now and then I still have to check. But anyway, welcome to episode 6 of the CTR podcast. Coming off a great week for the channel. I've had a load of good feedback about the intro that we released on Thursday, the NWA Straight Outta Compton album review. Biggest video we've done so far, with the most content in it. Once again, shout out to my editor Jake. Once again, shout out to Gilly, who phoned in with his opinions. Amazing video. If you haven't seen it yet, go check it out. Absolutely fantastic. It might be my favorite video that we've uploaded so far on the channel. Today we're going to be, it's sort of like a part 1 and part 2, but I'm going to put them together to make one podcast because there's two main things that I want to talk about. I want to do a rap story again because, a lot of you enjoyed that last week. I do want to talk about that. I want to shout out a couple of young artists that I didn't really know about until this week. I want to shout out one of my boys that I've been listening to for a long time, but I've just checked him on Spotify and he's got less than 1 million listeners, and I'm like, what the fuck? He's like one of the biggest new guys coming out of the West Coast in LA, so definitely want to give them a shout out. But first, I want to talk about something that's important to me and important to, I'm assuming, a couple of people that are listening. If you're a fan of wrestling and if you've been following it, this Wednesday has been probably the worst day and just the worst week in general for WWE and just the wrestling community in general. I want to talk about all the releases that WWE had to get rid of. Absolutely insane. Over 40 people have been released and put on furlough from WWE this week. It was reported early Wednesday that Vince McMahon got on a conference call with all the directors and all the talent, everybody that was involved in the company, and it was a 5-minute conversation, and he said he had to reduce the amount he was spending per month. I want to get into this, by the way, once I've talked about all the people that were released, why I think what's happened is an absolute travesty. But he basically got on this 5-minute conversation and said he had to get rid of a couple of talent because, he was trying to save money. It turned out to be £700,000 or dollars a month, and then combined with all of the backstage savings because of, with people being put on furlough and all some of the camera crew that was getting released, some of the set designers, I say set designers, I don't know if that's the right word. The people who put up the staging people, them guys, them lovely people. Some of them had to be released. It's absolutely terrible. And then to top it all off, Howard Finkel, probably the best announcer, ring announcer that has ever existed, ever in. I'd probably put him even worldwide announcers in the top 5. I'd put him up there with the Buffers. 100%. The Fink passed away on Thursday of age 69. It's not been reported to my knowledge what the cause of death was, but what a guy. He was the longest tenured WWE employee up until his death. He was with the company before it even became WWE. He was with the company when it was WWW, when it was owned by Vince McMahon Sr. in the 1970s. He joined the company in 1970. He became one of the main announcers in 1971 and then 1972. All the way up to 1980 when it became WWE. He was the very first employee that was signed to the company technically. So all the way from 1980 until this Thursday, 2020, he has been a member of the company. So it's so sad. 69 years old. It's nothing these days. So rest in peace, Howard Finkel, the Fink. Absolutely amazing memories. If you watch wrestling in the Attitude Era, and if you watch wrestling up until I think it was about 2004, that would have been the voice of your childhood. You could just picture him just announcing people to the ring, declaring people new champions or still champion. Absolutely amazing voice. So I wanted to start off with that, pay him respects. But yeah, getting on to the releases and furloughs, some shocking names that came out this week. One of the most shocking names that came out for me is the first person I'm going to talk about, Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle has been released from the company. He put out a statement thanking the company and telling people to, support all the young talent. Kurt Angle was a backstage producer. Everyone knows who Kurt Angle is. He used to be an active talent. He used to be an active wrestler. Up until very recently, he was the kayfabe general manager of Raw, and I think it was like 2018, and now he's a backstage producer, or he was a backstage producer. So that was some shocking news for me, because as I say, Kurt Angle's been with the company for a long time, like a really, really long time. I was shocked. I was shocked to see him go. Another person I was shocked to see go, Rusev. Now, Rusev has been reportedly wanting to leave the company anyway for a good number of years. His contract has been up in the air for a good number of years. He's wanted to leave, and then they've signed him back, and then it looks like now he's got his wish. So I don't think Rusev is going to have any trouble finding work in the greater wrestling community. Not at all. One of the saddest like reports to come out was Drake Maverick, and it wasn't just because he'd been fired. It was the video that he uploaded a couple of hours after. Absolutely tragic. If you can find this online, I'm not going to play it because I've already watched it and it's just depressing, to be honest. But go and watch it. It was really sad. It really shows signs of today and how the world is just up in the air right now. And you can just see that the look on his face is like he doesn't know where to go on from here. He says that WWE are letting him compete in the 3 matches that he's got left. That would be in the Cruiserweight tournament that's coming up this week. I think it's this week. It might be in a couple of weeks. Current Cruiserweight champion Jordan Devlin is stranded in Ireland because of the pandemic. So the Cruiserweight title is currently vacant. So that's what the tournament is for. So, I mean, good that they've let him do these last 3 matches. But after that, he has no really where to go. But hopefully he will find some work. I think he will. I think he'll be working with someone who is also on this list, and I'm going to be reading them out in a couple of minutes. But I don't want to dwell on loads of people because there's quite a lot. You've got Kyle Anderson and Luke Gallows. So the OC is officially gone. AJ Styles is the only person left in the OC, so I don't know what's going to go on there. Eric Young, former leader of Sanity. Nothing was really being done with him on the main roster, so that does not surprise me that he's gone. But all these people, by the way, whether you think, whatever you think about the talent and all that, the people, and they've lost a job. So, when you're thinking about this sort of stuff, you can't think of the characters. Think about the people. EC3 is the person I was talking about. He was working with Drake Maverick. They were working in TNA before EC3 and Drake Maverick came back to the WWE. Well, Drake Maverick didn't come back. He was signed originally back in 2016, and that was the first time I believe he'd been with the company. Rockstar Spud used to be in TNA. Him and Ethan Carter, EC3, used to work in TNA together. They were a good, little because they were Dixie Carter and a couple of other people. So as a collective, they'll do fine. I think they'll start working together again. Kurt Hawkins, for the second time, this is him being released in 2016. He rejoined the company after being fired in 2014. In Twitter, he said, the first time I got fired, I had a funny joke, but I don't think it's really appropriate in this situation. So, Kurt Hawkins, I'm not sure what he's going to do. I mean, hopefully he'll find work. Hopefully, he's talented enough to find, and he's talented enough to find work, and he will be able to use the fact that he's been in this company, to find a job somewhere else. Leo Rush, another young guy who I'm not really worried about, to be quite honest with you. He had a lot of trouble backstage, but he seemed to have reconciled with a lot of people who he pissed off in the company, but now he's been released. The 21-year-old will find work. He's probably one of the most talented people on this list that has been released. Heath Slater was a big one for me. Heath Slater has been with the company for 14 years. 2006, I believe, he was signed to the company. He was the OVW World Champion, and then he joined the Nexus, and then all that shit happened. He was with the Social Outcasts. He was with the Core. He was the first ever SmackDown Live Tag Team Champions with Rhino, and now he's gone. To be fair to him as well, though, he has got one of the highest selling t-shirts, I believe, on Pro Wrestling Tees right now. So if you like him, go support him. Since he's he's just left the company. Aiden English is another guy who I believe that they skipped on in terms of what they could have done with him. He can sing. When he was with Rusev Day, he was really talented. I thought he was very entertaining. So I don't know what he's gonna do. Maybe he will stay with the company, not the company, with the industry. Maybe he'll go back to doing stage work. Who knows? Another girl, should I say, Sarah Logan. Sarah Logan, former member of the Riot Squad, she had improved a lot in the ring in the past couple of months, especially when it comes to, I'd say, from the Royal Rumble onwards. Really noticed the difference in her. I just think she improved a lot since she first came into the company. 100%. You can tell she was putting in the effort to get better in the ring and get better as a character as well. She kind of changed from like sort of like a farm girl or whatever it was, and now she had like a little Viking thing going. Mainly because she was married to Ro, one half of the Viking Raiders or War Machine, whatever the hell you want to call it. Mike Chioda is probably the biggest one on this list for me. Mike Chioda is a senior referee. He's been with the company since 1989. His first TV on-screen debut was at the Survivor Series of 1989, and he'd been with the company ever since. And to get fired like this, I mean, yeah, probably because of his tenure in the company, he was probably on a very high wage. But at the same time, this is cold for me. Like, this was his life. He spent the better half of his adult life at this company, 31 years in the company, and they just let him go on a 5-minute conversation. Crazy. I didn't like this at all. Primo and Epico, former Los Matadores, the Colones. Primo was with the company for a long time. Epico for a little bit less amount of time, but they've been tagging for a long time. Former tag team champions. There was a rumor that they've been released earlier this year, but it turns out that wasn't true because it's only, they've only just been released now. Eric Rowan, since that Spider gimmick dropped and since, all that shit happened, that does not surprise me because it was terrible. Eric Rowan, I kind of feel sorry for. He will find work. He's a big guy. It wouldn't surprise me if he went to AEW because his former tag partner Luke Harper is there. So that it wouldn't surprise me if he tried to get signed there. But he'll find work. He was improving in the ring, on the mic. He improved as well. Zack Ryder. Now this really hits home hard. Just because Zack Ryder had such an up and down career. Such an up and down career in this company. You may remember Z True Long Island Story. If it wasn't for Zack Ryder, I don't think there would be a wrestling community online. I don't think there would be any content online in terms of, people following sports and all that sort of stuff. Just because he was one of the first people to do it. And that's how he managed to get himself over way back in 2012. You got to think 2012 was a totally different world when it comes to online content. You didn't have as many podcasts. You didn't have as many news sites reporting on YouTube or anything like that. In terms of the people that I watch in terms of podcasts and news sites, none of that would exist without Zack Ryder. He got himself over through the internet, through his little show, Z True Long Island Story. Definitely go check out Zack Ryder's stuff from back in the day. That's how he got himself over. He got himself a title run. WWE sort of shitting him because he got himself over. That never made sense to me, and it sort of happened again when he won the IC title and then lost it the last time he won the title. That's the IC title that I'm just talking about now. He lost it the next day, and I believe that was WrestleMania 32, and then the Raw after it. Absolutely fucking ridiculous. But they never use Zack Ryder to his potential, and it's a massive shame. But Zack Ryder does currently have the highest selling T-shirt on Pro Wrestling Tees, so I think he's going to be just fine. Cody Rhodes is very interested in Zack Ryder. Cody Rhodes is actually responsible for Zack Ryder currently being married at the moment. He introduced him to his then future wife, Chelsea Green. So shout out to Zack Ryder. I think Zack Ryder will do fantastic on the indie scene, 100%. That is a true dark horse of this list. I think he'll be one of the biggest acts to come out of WWE, 100%. No Way Jose posted quite a humbling video. Even though he was quite fucked in the company, to be quite honest with you. He posted a very positive message, thanking the company, etc. But fair play to him. No Way Jose, I think he'll do just fine. If he drops that stupid gimmick, then I think he'll do just fine. Just because he's talented, we didn't really get to see what he was capable of. But his size, his look, I hope he does just fine. But yeah, a lot of other people went on furlough. Just off the top of my head now, because I'm not going to go all the way down this list. I'm not going to waste all your time. Just off the top of my list, I know Finlay. I believe he was furloughed, but on Twitter he did put sort of a goodbye message. So it might be the case that he might have been released, but I didn't think it was the case. But who else was on there? You've got Billy Kidman. These are all backstage producers, by the way. Billy Kidman was also furloughed. Scott Armstrong was furloughed. The writer behind Mandy and Otis was fired. I don't understand this whatsoever. I have no idea why they would fire her. She was responsible for probably the most popular storyline in a long time. She had only signed with the company in December, and it's sort of like she's been punished for making such a good storyline. I don't get the workings of WWE whatsoever at all. But I want to move on to what was talked about before with Vince McMahon. I don't believe this was very necessary. Dave Meltzer also said this on the Wrestling Observer. This company has a massive reserve of money. I don't think it was necessary whatsoever to release all these people. Just to put it in perspective for you, they have like a floating cash. I believe it's $90 million, and then reserves up to, in terms of debt capacity as well, of $500 million. So there was absolutely no need to get rid of all these people in such a callous way as well. And when I mean that, it's like it's just over the phone, a 5-minute conversation over the phone. What type of way is that to treat your talent? What type of way is that to treat people who've been with the company for over 20 years? People who've been there for over 10 years. It didn't surprise me that Vince made this decision, but it does surprise me that people are surprised that this has happened, because Vince McMahon is a selfish guy, and he wants to make the biggest turnover possible of the year. Here's a little fact for you. This is to put it into perspective of how selfish this company can be sometimes. Even if they had stopped selling merch now, even if they had stopped doing all shows now, in terms of Saudi Arabia shows, which there might not be any this year anyway, they were still in line to make a massive profit this year compared to the last year. So that says it all for me. It's all about the money for Vince. I mean, it's a company, and I understand that, but at the same time, the people who make companies are the employees, and the way he treats his employees sometimes, to me, is absolutely ridiculous. But oh well, whatever. Moving on. I know some of you people are into wrestling and all that. I just thought it was massive news this week, and I needed to put it on, and I needed to put it on this podcast and just talk about it, just because it was just huge news. The amount of people, the only sports company that I'm aware of in America that have been deemed an essential business because of a couple of business dealings that Linda McMahon, who was very close to the Trumps, by the way, made in Florida. She said she was going to be spending $18 million in Florida because of the she's part of this party that's going to be spending money in particular areas, and many people saw this as like sort of a bribe to the governor. And obviously they're very tight with Trump. Donald Trump was talking about all the sports personalities and all the sports company owners, and he referred to Vince as the great Vince McMahon. So that says it all, really, doesn't it? So after all this, and after WWE are being allowed to continue their practices, when leagues like the NBA, the NFL, the NHL, the Premier League, all the football in the world has stopped, you've still got wrestling continuing. And for some reason, they've still felt the need to get rid of nearly 50 members of staff. And by the end of next week, but by the time we're going to be talking on episode 7 of the podcast, I'm probably going to be talking about more people. Jesus Christ, I'm even thinking it, guys, don't worry. Let's talk about music. Let's talk about the music. Because this is a music channel, in essence. I know I'll talk about the news and all that. But let's talk about something. I want to talk about a little story. I was going to talk about 2 stories this week, but I thought one of them in particular really deserved its own, its own sort of spotlight, mainly because there's so many twists and turns and there's so many different parts of it, and it would just take me a long time to tell the story. And that story was Nas versus Jay-Z. I do want to talk about that in a later episode, maybe in its own dedicated video, but I'm not going to talk about it now, because as people who are vaguely familiar with that story, it's got so many ups and downs to it. It would take me more than one video to talk about it. I might do a part 1 and part 2, just because of all the stuff that went on, all the shit that went down. But today we're going to be talking about 50 Cent versus Ja Rule. 50 Cent versus Ja Rule is one of the longest beefs in rap, and it's still going on now. They still hate each other, and it's been going on since the late 90s, way back in 1998, and it even goes back to because they knew each other in the same neighborhood. They both grew up in Jamaica, Queens, in New York. They both sold drugs and all that, before they became famous. There was a very famous bit where, obviously, Ja Rule blew up before 50 did, but 50 Cent was going to release an EP on his original record label before he got shot. I don't know if you remember this. The EP ended up getting leaked online, and 50 Cent ended up being let go by that record label. It got leaked online, and there was like a snide diss to Ja Rule on that. So that was way back in 1999. Obviously, Ja Rule at the time was with Murder Inc. He'd already got a Billboard hit for his album. The name of the album escapes me. Do you know what? When it comes to Ja Rule, a lot of the information escapes me. Just because there's so many twists and turns in Ja Rule's career that I cannot keep track of his albums. I can keep track of his singles. But yeah, that happened. All the way up until 2003, Ja Rule was absolutely killing it in the music industry, like 100%. At the time, that was a famous bit, by the way, where 50 Cent got shot in the face, got shot like 9 times. That was a bit that we're talking about there. So yeah, but when it comes to Ja Rule, he was killing it. Obviously, he had the little team up with DMX and all that, and the little drama that went on there. But Ja Rule up until 2003 was killing it. 50 Cent then in 2003 dropped Get Rich or Die Trying. You know the story with that. It went triple platinum, all the way up in the Billboard, everything. Probably one of his most successful albums, and that's when 50 Cent really started to catch up to Ja Rule. There was a song on Get Rich or Die Trying called Back Down. That was produced by Dr. Dre. That was a massive diss aimed at Ja Rule. Obviously, you had the whole beef with Ja Rule claiming that he was responsible for the stabbing. The guy that was in Murder Inc. That was with what was his name? He was associate of Murder Inc. anyway. And Ja Rule claimed responsibility for the stabbing. He then got on his, I believe it was his 2004 album that was mainly all just aimed at 50 Cent. It was critically panned, but it ended up in number 3 in the Billboard Hot 100 at the time. There was a famous song on there where he dissed 50 Cent, the whole of G Unit, Dr. Dre, Eminem. He even had a dig at Eminem's daughter, which he never do, and we find out in a couple of minutes why you never do. And for some reason he also started having shots at Busta Rhymes, and this is where it gets interesting because Busta Rhymes never really gets involved in disses. But if you remember right, that really, really good song, that amazing diss track, Hail Mary, one of my favourite diss tracks of all time, Hail Mary, not the Tupac version, but the Eminem, 50 Cent and Busta Rhymes version, where they just absolutely tore Ja Rule apart. And Busta Rhymes was on this, and he even said in the song, why did you drag me into this? I didn't get involved in beefs, but if you want to start, then I'm gonna start. So that shit all went down. Like Ja Rule at this point, you've got to think that he was regretting his decision. Obviously, he was still clapping back, but like in terms of in terms of the worst career decisions you have ever made in your life, like Jesus Christ, is there ever been anyone in rap that has suffered more than Ja Rule when it comes to beefs? I mean, you could argue that Nas at the time sort of suffered a little bit, even though I believe he won that that beef with Hove. But Ja Rule, like, oh god, what a fall from grace. In terms, I put it to this way: they've both got the same amount of Billboard album hits. I believe they've both got 2 albums that have gone triple platinum. 50 Cent's being The Massacre and Get Rich or Die Trying. Ja Rule's with his first 2 drop albums as well. You've got to think, oh, what a fall from grace. Just because all the shit that happened, obviously Ja Rule having to take a hiatus from music for a while. He was He tried out acting. As you know, he was in the very first The Fast and the Furious. He went to jail for 2 years for tax evasion. And this is the real downfall of Ja Rule. I don't think he ever recovered from this. Mainly, I think it was just his reputation that was so damaged by this whole situation. And we're going to talk about a little bit further on, because this beef does not end, by the way. So obviously you had all that happen. You had Ja Rule then was involved in the very famous Fyre Festival. There's a documentary about that on Netflix, so I'm not going to go too much into it. But his partner actually ended up, his partner in the business actually ended up going to jail. So essentially, just like, a couple of bullet points about this festival. It was supposed to be a luxurious festival for the elite. If you come here, you're gonna receive gourmet meals. You're gonna have like loads of beautiful lodges to stay in. So much advertising went into this festival, and then in the end, they spent so much money on the advertising that they actually didn't have any money to pay for the artists. When the people got to the island, there was just rabid dogs, just roaming about the camps areas. The camp area in itself, they were just mattresses on the floor. The gourmet meals that they were talking about were just fucking cheese sandwiches. Absolute disaster. And to be involved in a disaster of that magnitude, how do you ever expect to just recover? Ever. Little side beats from this. Around the same time, Ashanti had a bit of a concert blooper go on, mainly because she only sold 24 tickets to a concert. She blamed it on not being advertised very well. But 50 Cent, about 50 Cent's Instagram game. He absolutely tore her apart. There's a very famous picture. I don't know if you've seen. Most people have seen it, because I thought it was hilarious. Do you know the picture where 50 Cent is sat in an audience and he bought 200 seats to Ja Rule's concert just so they'd be empty, and he was like, "Oh, great concert, Ja. My son went to the bathroom," and But Ja Rule clapped back at that, putting makeup on 50's face and all that on Instagram, saying you just a hoe ass bitch, You had Murder Inc. in general all the way through until around now. I mean, Ja Rule's not with Murder Inc. anymore, but Ashanti, and then you've got Ja Rule still calling 50 Cent Officer Curtis, because at the time when he did get stabbed and when he got shot, the NYPD took a very big interest in 50 Cent and started, there was a protection thing going for him. The police say this was just for his protection and just for, because there was a danger to his life. But there was a massive rumor in the streets that 50 Cent may have gone to the cops and may have, requested this, which has never been proven. But, Officer Curtis, that can't be good for your street rep. But yeah. When it comes to Ja Rule, I don't really know what to say about him, because he started off as, don't forget, at one point Ja Rule was the biggest hip hop figure in America, at least one of them. I'd say I'm just thinking of the years. Let's say from 1999 till 2002, Ja Rule was massive. Always on Time was, I believe that got into the top 10 in the Billboard and stayed there for a good few weeks. Just to put it in perspective, Ja Rule has 3 Billboard hits. 50 Cent has 4. So if we're scoring at home, then 50 Cent's still winning. But Ja Rule, he's got a lot of accolades, and for some reason he just fell off. And I do believe this beef is just because it was so impactful in his career. I think this is the reason why he fell off. 100%. That is my opinion. I think this was one of the worst decisions. 50 Cent did start it because of that whole EP drop, but I think Ja Rule had a massive influence in it, in terms of he kept feeding the fire. But yeah, Ja Rule. But all I have to say right now is, look where Ja Rule is in the music industry. And look where 50 Cent is in the music industry. 50 Cent, he did have a lawsuit. One of Rick Ross's girlfriends sued him because he famously put up that sex tape of her on Instagram, I think it was. but when people say 50 Cent went broke and filed for bankruptcy, that's not actually true. I mean, yes, he did file for bankruptcy, but I believe he filed for stage 11 bankrupt. I mean, don't quote me on the stages here, but I think it was stage 11, and stage 11 consists of you don't lose all your money. You're not broke. That it just puts all your debts on hold in terms of you can pay them at a later date. But 50 Cent had like a lot of successes in his career. I mean, just look at Power. He's the executive producer on that. I mean, it's ended now, but like, look where that's gone and look where it's come. I mean, there's going to be sequels. There's going to be spin-offs of that. I think there's going to be a Tommy. I mean, spoiler alert, if you haven't watched the end of Power, then, maybe just skip this bit. But I know there's going to be a Tommy sequel, where he's in LA. You got to think that. I think it's LA or Miami. There was a little skit at the end of the last episode where you see young Ghost, young Angie, and young Tommy. So there's going to be a prequel, which I'm really looking forward to. That's going to be a really good watch. But look at the comparisons. Like, 50 Cent's doing really well. He has that mineral water that he earned $100 million off. That was good. And what I'm saying is basically that, like, they're at really different stages in the career. And what's interesting is that fair play to Ja Rule. He's not salty about it. I don't think he. I think he knows what happened, and I think he knows what transpired, and why what happened. So fair play to Ja. I mean, I actually don't mind Ja Rule's music, especially in Always on Time. I can't remember the name of the album, but the album that was on, really good album. But apart from that, 50 Cent took the massive dub. Guys, before we end this, I do want to shout out a couple of people, just because there's a couple of people that I've been listening to this week. I said this at the start of the podcast, that have a lot of love, but I think they need more love, just because some of these guys are really great. And a lot of these are down to a couple of people that I've been introduced to this week. I want to shout out Odyssey. I got sent an Odyssey track today, and on Monday, there's a really good song that he's got called Own Appeal. I'd definitely go check out Odyssey. Defo go check out, and this is my choice, go check out a guy called Reason, a massive guy. You might have heard of Reason, coming out of the West Coast. He's got nearly 1 million listens, and he does really well. He's been around for a long time. There was a video where Ice Cube actually watched some of his stuff. I'm not sure of the name of that video, but basically the whole premise of this video was Ice Cube was in front of a computer, and he was given the situation of, you're a record label owner, and you have to sign one of these people from the West Coast. There was people like Blueface on that list, and Reason was on that list, and Ice Cube picked out Reason because he was just like, I think he's really good. He's different with it. He's got a really good flow. I love it. I love his presence on videos. Defo go check out Reason, guys. He's got a song out at the minute called Trapped In. That's featuring Ab-Soul. Ab-Soul, you know who Ab-Soul is. I've shown love for Ab-Soul on this channel before. Former Black Hippie member. I mean, he still is in Black Hippie technically, with Kendrick Lamar and Schoolboy Q. Defo go check out Reason. Chewy, shout out Gilly for putting me on to Chewy. Chewy's really good. I've got a lot of love for Chewy. I've not really been listening to him lately, but I remember listening to this guy a couple of years ago, but I don't even know if it was that long ago. But Chewy, shout out to Chewy. I really like Chewy. He's got a song called May I, and if you listen to the chorus of this song, you might recognize it, because it's in the same sort of style as Gin and Juice by Snoop Dogg. And it's like, like in Gin and Juice is Snoop Dogg goes, "May I kick a little something for the G's and make it through ends as I breeze through," something like that. I believe that's Gin and Juice. I think it's Gin and Juice. But yeah, the style of the chorus is sort of based on that. Defo go check out Chewy. Really good. Go check out Lute as well. This is a guy that I hadn't heard of, and I got introduced to this week. Lute's really good. Anything by Lute. I've been listening to him all week since I got introduced to him. He's really good. He's got sort of like a 90s sort of flow. A bit like Chewy. Like Chewy is a guy who was a new artist, but he's got like a bit of a 90s flow going on. I compared it to a bit of Q-Tip sort of, style. That's what that reminds me of. But defo go check out these guys. But that's, as I say, this was like a sort of part 1 and part 2 podcast put together. But guys, I hope you enjoyed it. Episode 6 of the podcast. I'm really loving what the channel's doing right now. We've got a couple more followers on Instagram, so I'm enjoying the little bit of the growth on that channel. I'm looking forward to the growth that's hopefully going to be happening on this channel in the near future. I've got a lot of stuff planned coming up in the next couple of weeks, in the next couple of months, and I'm not looking too far into the future, but I definitely do have plans, and I definitely do have a vision of to see, you know, where this channel is going to go in the future. So please stay tuned for that. If you like our videos, if you like anything that we've produced, give it a like. Go subscribe to the channel. Go follow us on Facebook at Charttopper Radio. Go follow us on Instagram at the same name, Charttopper Radio. If you see something that you like on there, give it a like. Show some love. Share it with your friends. Share it with your family. Go share it with your nana. She's got nothing to do. She's trapped in. And seeing as though this is the official isolation station, she might as well listen to me talk. So, guys, go show some love. I hope you have a really happy Sunday, and peace.